Just going to check this is all working on the various platforms before we get too excited. So I was going to check this is streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, and an issue last week. So if you're there, then ping me some messages so I know that it's actually working. I'll go and check myself as well. Okay, I can see myself, which is a good start. Great, we've got a few people coming in now. It takes a while for these things to sort of populate through these different social media channels. I'm no expert. I'm going to add it onto do a Instagram live as well. Let's get the right account. Let's do this on Moblox. Right, so we've got this on Instagram live as well. Well, been another crazy week, isn't it? Seems to get worse. I've got my changed my mic today as well. I can't decide which mic to go for. Quite like this one. So we're here in the Moblox studio. I'm Piers Linney, former Dragon on Dragon's Den. If you can remember that, it's quite a while ago now. It's quite funny that last year, because they rerun it, I stopped getting recognised. So people would see me in the street and they'd sort of say, "Don't you work in Barclays in Manchester? I know you from somewhere. Do our kids play football together?" And I'd be kind of like, "Well, no, not really." But because they rerun it last year, people now recognise me again. It was like being back on TV. So I do have some structures to this. I've actually written it down here, things I'm going to go through. So the first thing is, number one, we're sort of working on launching trying to industrialize this content output. So we're going to be launching. Hello, Farida. Hello, George. Hello, Gary. Hello, Sophia. Sophia's cheating a bit because Sophia's our community manager, is also helping out on the social media as well. So hello, Sophia. So I'm here in the studio, and the first thing is that you probably see here in this banner here is Pitch to Peers. So we launched a competition. So I was driving around the UK before I caught COVID, and we launched a competition to win £10,000 for a UK-based small business. You got to go to the current web page. It's quite sort of a static web page, just a competition on there. Enter, read the T's and C's in terms of what we want you to cover. Checking people on Instagram can hear as well. So if you're there, hello. I'll wave to a couple of people here. Yes, enter the competition and you can win 10K. No strings attached. I'm not going to ask for 30% of your business or whatever it might be. It's an opportunity to, really sort of, kickstart a new business, or maybe pay back some of the debt you maybe have incurred in an established business over the last 18 months or 2 years. Is it now? It seems to be going on forever. So that's something we're sort of going to be running until the end of January. And the idea then is that 5 finalists, hello Nina, hello Maisie, 5 finalists will then get the opportunity to pitch to me. I don't know if it's going to be in person or virtual now. We'll see near the time. And then the winner wins £10,000. But clearly, we want to sort of support as many people as we can. So Moblox is my new business we're building. It's all a bit sort of stealth for the minute. We can see we've got some branding. We'll see if you're looking on the LinkedIn or YouTube. And we are going to be launching our sort of content platform in January. So that's going to be sort of community, which Sophia is going to be working on. Hello, Kevin. What are we talking about today? Well, I think we're going to be talking about what you want to talk about, to be quite frank. Although I've got a few questions people have sent in already, so I'll go through those. So we're launching a content community in January, and then we're going to be launching sort of services for small businesses. And we're building a platform designed specifically for small businesses to help you understand your technology and your business tools options and make better informed purchasing decisions. And along the way, if we think the market is providing you a lot of nonsense, we're going to re-engineer it, reimagine it, rebuild it ourselves. So we're working quite hard on some serious, how do I put this, engineering to offer you some fantastic telco services as well. But eventually, we want a whole marketplace. So we're busy working on that. Hello, Jeffrey. Hello, Kevin. Hello. Who we got here? Family Flow App, The Real Maid, SK6. That's on Instagram there. Okay, great. So if you're watching this and you've got a small business, there's no reason not to enter the competition. And also, please do follow us on social media. We've got a couple of million, 800 or so on LinkedIn, 300 or so on Instagram. So I need to build it up. So we're going to be sort of producing more content to make that more interesting for you. So I've been up north this week as well. It always amazes me. So I don't know if you've been watching this because he follows me on my personal account, not the Moblocks Instagram account. But I was driving up the M6, and as usual, stationary traffic, and this chap pulls up alongside and started sort of shouting. I think, oh my God, have I cut him? I'm in the Moblocks. Well, it's not my van, our van, but it's branded Moblocks at the minute. It's got all sort of Moblocks branding on it. And it says, win £10,000 all down the side of it for them in pitch to peers. And he pulls up and he's kind of like shouting. I think, oh God, who have I cut up now? And he said, wind the window down. So we wind the window down. And he said, I was blowing smoke on my own, sort of proverbial here, but he said, but you're my hero. And I said, well, what are you talking about? And he said, you're the reason. I didn't quite get the full backstory because we're in stationary traffic shouting across the M6. And he said, you're one of the reasons I started a business. And I've got a multi-million-pound business now. And I think he was doing performance or high-end car recovery because they tend to break down quite a lot. And he said, and he saw the van and he follows on Instagram. And I think he was quite surprised that I was actually at the wheel driving it. So it's just fantastic to see. I get these things probably once a month where someone that bumped into randomly in a coffee stop or something tells me that, some content I produce helped them or inspire them to even, and in quite a few cases, just actually start a business. And that's fascinating. I love hearing that. It's quite sort of it makes the hairs stand up on my arm. So that was great on the M6 interaction. And I'm going to go through a little bit of news as well. So very hard to do these things without mentioning the C word. It's so annoying. COVID. I mean, they've got Omicron now, going through the Greek alphabet. At my school, we didn't really do a lot of Greek or Latin, so I'm learning the Greek alphabet through COVID. And I was just talking to someone else, and a friend of mine in the hospitality industry, and they're terrified that this kind of new these new rules that are coming in on Monday. If you've got something that's highly transmissible, they're not willing to do much, are they? You can go into hospitality, but you can't go into various other places. It doesn't really work. So it's not really going to stop the spread, is it? So we are at the mercy almost of this new variant, because at some point, if it really does become bad, and the point is, it doesn't seem to be sort of particularly dangerous. It's just that if the NHS becomes under pressure, then we've all got a problem. And a lot of people, and a lot of the questions I got some questions by DM kind of related to this, because no matter whether it's this or Brexit or the last 2 years generally, or financing your business and just trying to, and the big issue is just trying to plan. No one can plan. It's hard to sort of recruit people. You don't know, you're trying to get an office or new infrastructure. Planning is very, very difficult. And an inability to plan is what makes, risk management and running a business generally very, very difficult. It kind of adds to the risk of it. And the couple of pieces of news that have jumped out at me. One was that businesses have now invested. Everyone thought Christmas, right? Here we go. We've got a clear run at this. Let's go. Invested 12 billion in the Christmas economy, preparing for it. Stock, marketing, whatever it might be. And it might be now the rug gets pulled. And again, who are the businesses that suffer the most? It's the ones that they don't have the balance sheet. They don't have access to endless amounts of capital. They can't borrow when they feel like it. It's small businesses. So this, I'm really hoping that the Omicron doesn't become the problem people think it might be. But personally, I don't want to get political and that, but I just don't think these half sort of baked measures really do the job. It's a fine line between, do you sort of disrupt the economy, or do you try to stop these things? I don't think you can. I think this is the new. I'm looking forward to the day where we kind of know what the new normal is. This is just the way it's going to be now. things like booster vaccines, like the flu every year, whatever it might be, as this thing evolves and circles the world. But we need to get to that point quite quickly in business because it's not ideal, it's not easy, but we need some kind of stability. You need to know where the water level is so that you can start planning as well. So I was amazed that, and it just reminds you that everyone thought this was a clear run for Christmas, and that might not be the case. You already see now that people on the sort of roads and the tubes, it's already slowing down. So for Monday, imagine a lot of city centres are going to struggle. There won't be that many people kicking around. Another one is the unemployment as well. So, we've had the end of furlough. So unemployment's rising. Unemployment might get another one jumped out at me. Again, partly due to the lockdown as well. But unemployment is probably rising to up to over 2 million. This is the first time in 7 years. So, that's a big issue. Another one which, people I think is played down quite a lot, which we should all be cautious of, is inflation. No matter who you talk to, I'm involved in many businesses where you are seeing cost inflation creeping, and there's only so long can you, try and resist passing that on to your customers. Your competitors might not be, so you don't want to, and you don't want to increase prices, do you? But at some point, as those costs are rising, the pressure to increase prices, which then flows into inflation throughout the economy, cost inflation, and also the price inflation, the sort of customer price index, CPI index. That's where we're going to see it. And they're talking about in the US and here, inflation of 4%. Real inflation must be way beyond that. They've been cooking those books for goodness how many years. If you go back to the old measures of inflation, it'd be probably 10% plus. So again, inflation is another one to be very, very careful of. Well, I can't keep this an hour. So I got one question on LinkedIn, quite a long one, and this is from John, and I've got a sneaking suspicion that this is John Newbold. I don't mention using your name. We used to go to school with you. So I keep saying, yeah, my Instagram's got a poor connection. It's a bit weird. So we were at school together many, many moons ago. Quite an interesting school up in the north of England. John seems to have done very well for himself. He's got a business. But I think that one of the issues is, he's got customers that expect, and I've got a bit of manufacturing business as well that I'm involved in too. And you've got customers that are expecting things to be delivered. I bought some things that actually recently that have quite a long supply chain, and they've really struggled getting this thing out. And you've got customers that want things delivered. You've got a supply chain that be quite difficult, and sometimes you've got to finance the gap. And I think in this case, people have taken bounce back loans, or whatever finances have been available. But as the problem sort of extends, that kind of finance is not always the right kind of finance as well. Also, you don't want sort of permanent finance. You might want trade finance or short-term finance, overdrafts. But quite often, given where we've been for the last 2 years, you've exhausted all those different avenues. So this can be a real tricky one. And the point is that there are only so many things you can do. I tend to look at these things like logic trees, decision trees, really, is that what can, and this is what you should always do, is just, there's no point sort of, John's doing this, but a lot of people do. You get into a sort of a frozen in a panic, and you just don't know what to do. And quite often, even if you can't struggle to do it yourself, you sit down with someone that's a bit more objective and lay out the options. Say, right, what is it that I can do to mitigate this risk, to improve things, to maintain this customer, to improve my margin, whatever it might be. And then what you have to do then is make decisions. So it might be, in this case, that your customers are going absolutely bananas, because they've probably got, there's a reason why they order these things, isn't there? And it might be a timing issue as well. So, and this is for any business really, is the key is communication. So I bought, I won't mention the name or the product, but I bought some products recently, reasonably expensive. And, the sort of delivery date kept changing. The deliveries got sort of messed up. And, I understand the issues, especially I do, but the communication is the key to it. It's about communicating to your supply chain, to your bank actually sometimes as well, so they understand what's going on, communicating to your customers, and just keeping them up to date and being quite frank and candid with them about where you are, what the issues are, what you're doing to try and solve it. And, you give them an honest and realistic update. Now, you update because of, things that are outside your control that may turn out to be inaccurate or incorrect or completely off the mark. But at that moment in time, with the information you had, you explained the reasons behind your decision, or or where you are, and you gave them an honest appraisal of the situation. That is all you can do. And there's no point worrying about stuff. Probably heard this before. No point worrying about stuff that you can't do anything about. That's the reality. So look at your supply chain. You're obviously pushing them hard. You can incentivize them to get up the food chain by paying them a bit more, maybe, or whatever the deal can be. Or that's going to, again, it's going to hit your margins, but again, maybe you retain a customer. What is it you can do? But the key, I think, is that customer is king. Is try and maintain those relationships, try and maintain those customers, and just be really honest with them and really upfront with them. I don't know if that's going to help John in his particular situation, um, but there will come a point often where these things can go legal. So you've got a delivery date and you've missed it. Yes, you can argue and explain what the reasons are, but you need to be careful that you're not running into legal risk. In that contract, it may say you've got to deliver something on a particular day or by a certain time, and the fact you haven't, and it's gone on for so long, even though it's through no fault of your own or your business, I mean, you can be entering some sort of realm of legal liability. So be really careful about that as well. So make sure that when you get into that, you think you're getting into that place. Mitigate those risks as well. Be careful what you write. Be careful what you sort of put down into writing in your communication. So do communicate, but if you're in that particular situation, be careful about how and what you communicate, because if it does all end up in court or goes legal, then people are going to be poring over that correspondence. So that's a little warning there from a former lawyer. But the key message there is communication. Another question I got from chat was Stuart, again on LinkedIn actually, was about personal guarantees. So he's in a similar situation where the business needs a bit more capital. He's got access to potential funding. I think it might be from what he was saying, sort of a peer-to-peer lending platform, which is great. There's all sorts of ways and places in which you can raise finance now in new and interesting, innovative ways. But often, just like banks, the lender, they want to mitigate their risk, so they want to know that their finance providers are going to get their money back. They're not going to lose their shirt. And often, what you will get in small businesses, because I always say every single one of these, you can understand any kind of debt instrument, almost leverage buyouts, whatever you want to buy a mortgage. They want cash flow, your income. They want an asset, the house. You put a deposit down, you put some equity in, so that kind of lowers their risk. But if you can't pay, they're going to look very hard at your cash flow, your income, like they do in your business. So you need cash flow, or you need some kind of collateral. If you haven't got cash flow or collateral, debt's not for you. You're kind of wasting your time. But often what they will do is what's called, my little legal hat on again, is pierce the corporate veil. So, we all know about limited liability and limited companies. Instagram's useless. And the idea about limited liability is it limits your liability to, the company is a legal person, it's a legal entity, and that can contract and it can take on liabilities and obligations. If it doesn't sort of deliver on them, it can be sued, there can be recourse, but it only goes as far as the capital in the business. It doesn't impact shareholders. Now, what a personal guarantee does is it kind of overrides that. What you're saying is, I will personally guarantee and support and put up collateral, my own personal asset for the business. Now, it's not always a bad thing. I'm not giving financial advice here, but it's not always a bad thing. But I have seen these things go wrong. I've seen a lot of people struggle to repay these things, and over many, many years, actually, they've had a bank on their back chasing them for every penny they've earned, basically, and everything they've got. So institutions, people that lend money, they will come after you. Don't think they won't, and they will do it in a very systematic way, because they outsource that normally. So be aware that if you enter into a personal guarantee and for some reason the business doesn't perform and that guarantee is called upon, they will come after you. So if you are, guaranteeing an amount of money that's a small part of your liquid net worth, you can probably take a view on that. If you are remortgaging your house in which your family live, and too many entrepreneurs have been down that road, you're remortgaging your house, you are literally putting everything you have on the line, then you need to think very long and hard about whether you should do that and what it's worth. And it can be soul destroying, thinking that if I don't do that, my business might fail. But you need to take into account everything and everybody that that decision might impact. So PGs are not necessarily a bad thing. People think they are sometimes, that they're trying to, come after my asset. You are saying, I used to be an investor on the other side of the fence. So you got someone that walks in the office and says, right, I think my business is going to do this. Here are the numbers. I've done the work. It's amazing. It's going to be fantastic. Let's go. Can you supply capital? And you say, okay, here you go. Here's the deal. And then it doesn't work, whether it's for, operationally, the product market fit, the business wasn't right, or there's a flipping global pandemic. You still want your money back. So entrepreneurs, business owners, you are selling a dream, you are demonstrating numbers, you are showing growth or a reason why you need that expansion capital or capital to trade. And you can't always pay it back when you think you can. So what you can get into is kind of restructuring and having that conversation. Goes back to the previous question about communication, but just measure the guarantee you're giving against your personal assets, especially the liquid ones, because they're the ones that are like your car, money, cash, shares, and things like that. Things you can sort of turn into cash pretty quickly. You don't really, unless there's a particular reason for it, really when we're putting everything you've got on the line. Right, let's have a look here now. I've been wittering on there for quite a while. Let's have a look at the chat. We've got some here on Aman. Hello, Aman. What are you laughing at? Is that a laughing emoji? Little Jamaica. Often chatting to little Jamaica because they make a lot of fantastic Caribbean sauces and seasonings. So if you're interested in anything like that, go and have a look at Little Jamaica. They're on LinkedIn. Right, let's have a look on the chat here. Often, like last week, this all went very startup financing, product market fit, tech. Let's talk about a quick one here about Dragon's Den, because I think this is a wider point. So, what was the best pitch you heard during your time in the Den, and why? The best pitch, I think, was the one I invested in it, and they've done very well. The business was sold eventually, which was Lost My Name Wonderfully, which is the personalized children's books. So these were guys that they knew what they were doing. They had sort of domain authority. They had PhDs actually, and they had a term sheet from a VC. So that kind of gave some credibility in terms of, I know somebody had done some due diligence, someone had done some work, and cast their slide rule over this business. And they just presented very simply that they understand the technology. And any pitch is a story, isn't it? You need a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if it's a business pitch, you need to know your audience. So make sure people often they pitch things to people in ways that just aren't relevant or appropriate. So understand your audience and pitch in a certain way. Are they technical or aren't they? Is it high level? And that pitch was great because it was just clean. It was simple. It's like, we've got, I can't remember the exact numbers now, 3 or 4 of them. And we understand the technology. We understand the psychology of children. We have a storyteller and we have an artist. So it was kind of all there and all laid out, very simple. And all they then did really was talk through the model, the business model, about making bedtimes fascinating. And they presented a product, which is a beautifully put together product. And that was it. The product, I mean, you don't always have a product, so that can be quite hard. They had a physical product, so you can actually turn the pages. That made it easier. That's not always the case. You don't always have that. But just keep it simple, play to your strengths, and understand who your audience, and give them that. Share the vision, but explain to them how you're going to execute it. And I suffer myself. I'm doing Moblox. My presentation's too long, and I'm talking to someone now, trying to shorten it. And it can be tricky sometimes to really get things across, especially if they're quite complicated, to audiences that aren't experts in that particular field. And the other thing about it is just to keep testing it. So before you take your pitch out anywhere, before you go out into the wide world and use it, test it on people. Test it on people that that understand your business, and test it on people that have absolutely no clue, and get feedback, and then build that into it as well. What else we got here? Feeding through. Hey, Kevin, get in touch. Kevin Brown there, platform for broadcasting, building a community. Email me or get hold of Sophia as well, who's actually online now, and let us know what you've got. I mean, Farida, the one that I mentioned earlier about keeping your head above water during COVID. We have this question kind of every week, so I'll just touch on it very quickly. But like I was saying, is that the hardest thing, I'm sort of stating a flipping obvious here, the hardest thing is planning, is how the hell do you plan? You're not sure how it's going to go on for, when it's going to, flare up again, and what rules the government's going to roll out. And the key to it again, like I said, is one is about keeping your customers happy as far as you can, but it's about, and I say this again, and if you know this phrase, but keep your powder dry. So don't just assume. So anyone who, there's a stat that 12 billion has been invested in this clear run at Christmas, right? We're not going to have a clear run at Christmas now. So if you'd moved all your chips over onto red to go at Christmas hard, and that's not going to happen, that could be very expensive. So my main advice has been throughout all of this has been to mitigate the risk and just try and spread. Don't just put your foot on the gas, put all your chips on red and go, if too many people do. They think they can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's like it's go time. It isn't. We just do not know how long this is going to go on for. This could go on for another year, until we get to the point where it is the new normal. We understand how this is going to work, and we can get on with our lives. That's the key to it. Now, if your business is doing fantastically well during this difficult time, you're selling face masks or something, that's great. But look, come a day where people aren't, where we do see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then you'll find yourself in a tricky situation. So I've seen people during the sort of ebbs and flows of COVID, with businesses that have benefited from it actually, then get into a blind panic because they kind of geared up, hoping this goes on for longer than it probably will do even. And they're in a blind panic because they've geared up and they've got too much stock, or there's too much stuff sitting in a container ship on its way from China, whatever it might be. So for everybody in business, this is a time where, if you're not, we haven't got huge companies, any of us. So you haven't got a balance sheet, a stock market, or debt to go and fall back on through some professional advisor. You've got what you've got. You may have got some help from the government. You may have got some kind of bounce back loan, whatever it might be as well. But that's it. That's it. There's nothing else. And that kind of finance is, that's not going to happen again in a hurry, because it costs the government, the taxpayer, a huge amount of money. So you've got what you've got at the moment. You've got the assets you've got the working capital you've got to make it last, and make it last possibly longer than you think it would. Because what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is you don't grow as quickly, and then you end up missing a few opportunities because you're being cautious. That's far better than than blowing up your business because you took a flyer. So that's my advice. Gary Rushgrove, thank you for entering. That's a pretty fast entry. Well done to you. Make sure you read the T's and C's and cover all the sustainability, innovation, and your vision for the business, growth aspirations, all that good stuff as well. What else have we got? That's an interesting one. I don't really have all the answers to these questions, but some experience with this. Hi, Piers. What are your thoughts on having international co-founders, and what are some of the things we should be aware of if we do have an initial international founding team? I don't really understand the context of this. It sounds very complicated. So it's quite hard to have co-founders in the true sense of that word, unless you actually know them quite well. So I'm not sure how you have co-founders that are international you don't really know, unless it's some kind of corporate. So if you're talking about co-founders in the sense that these are the initial shareholders or partners, that's one thing. If you're talking about somebody you are going to spend the next 10 years of your life with, working 18 hours a day, 6 days, even 7 days a week, that's something else. So your co-founder. People often come to me saying, "Oh, I'm starting a business. I need to find a co-founder," and I'm kind of like, well, you don't always want to go rushing out finding co-founders. And even when you do find, and this is the main point, this is the main answer to your question. Even when you do have co-founders, whether this is a person, a corporate, I'm not sure the context that you're talking about here, is that make sure that when you get together, when you have that happy day, when you sign your shareholder agreement or whatever structure you've got, that you've included in that document a mechanism to get divorced. Sadly, because that happens a lot, and too many people go rushing into these relationships with people, or they don't particularly understand or don't know. International, not doesn't matter where you are. Obviously, internationally, you're going to have cultural language barriers you need to understand, and make sure you understand the way they operate as well, because that can be quite different culturally. And do not underestimate the importance of culture. If your culture's straddling two different geographies, where is the culture? Where is it being sort of formed and cooked and baked? And then ideally you want to roll it out. You don't want sort of two different cultures or several different ones around the world. But the key is in any relationship like this is to really get to know them, really get your cards on the table, and have everything out essentially. And then once you know where you all stand, put that into some kind of agreement. You'll have some negotiation and some fights over it perhaps, but at least you've gone through that process and you come up with something that everyone's willing to sign. But then make sure, as I said, that in that document there's a way of parting company. And that can be individuals, it can be corporate shareholders. There are lots of ways of doing it. I'm not going to go through it on this. So maybe that's another Moblox webinar about shareholder agreements and the mechanisms to part company. But that's really important you have that. Hope that was useful. So, and I think international is particularly relevant on what I just mentioned there. I think it is very relevant and very important to make sure that you do have one culture, one team, one ethos. You're all pulling in the same direction. You haven't got this sort of random collections of people around the world that aren't really all pulling in the right direction. All right, what else have we got? Well, that's a good one. George, why does your business exist? Why? It's always the whys, isn't it? And this is something that we should all ask ourselves. And it depends what you're doing, but if you don't ask yourself, somebody is going to at some point. So why? So in terms of let's do Moblox. So why Moblox? So why? Usually, what happens is that a lot of founders, you have experience and you have an insight, and you see something or you realize something or you understand something that something could be done, something new can be created that can add value to people's lives or to their business, and they're willing to pay for it. That's a business. Or something that already exists can be improved upon. So what I really saw, two things that came with two angles, macro and sort of micro. So the macro thing is that small businesses, since the onset of cloud and software as a service, is an explosion of technology that we should all be using. It should make our lives easier, it should make us more efficient, more productive, more profitable, happier, have more time to go and walk the dog or spend with the kids. There's a huge amount of technology out there, but small businesses, and it's well documented, are not adopting, not embracing it. Why is that? That's because most people, and I don't pretend to not understand all of it either, just don't understand the options, don't understand what's out there, how we use it, how we should adopt it, how we integrate it into our business, how people should be trained to use it. We just don't understand it. It used to be a day 5-10 years ago where someone built it all for you and looked after it for you. The cloud's killed that. So now you've got powerful software. It's all cloud-based, it's all variable costs, all subscriptions. We don't know how to use it. So that needs to be fixed. So Moblox in one way is about helping small businesses. I call them owner-led, because it might be a startup, it might become a big business, but there'll be a point where you're a small business, so but you're owner-led. We want the founder, the owner, the small business owner, to help them make better technology and what I call business tools purchasing decisions. Now, the original insight, though, that was kind of where it kind of grew to. The original insight, though, was that, and I've been in this sector, is that small business services are rubbish. The way in which they are delivered, the way in which they are designed, because they're not designed for small businesses. They're usually designed for large businesses, and they try and pare them down. Or it's a consumer product, and you get charged more because you're a business, because they give you a VAT invoice. It's complete nonsense. So I liken it to the neobanks. So traditional banks stuck in the 90s, cultural inertia, systems, process, the long list of things, regulation, very difficult to change. The neobanks came along, your Revolut, Monzo, Starling, Tides, changed the game just by being software driven, customer centric, and a more fleet of foot. And you can do that in small business service, especially in the telco space, because telcos are just like the banks. They're probably even worse, actually, in terms of where they're stuck, because they have enormous terms of inertia in terms of systems and process. The other ones are the used car industry. Look at that as well. So those kind of double glazing, the old sort of used car sales techniques that people sort of make jokes about. The Cinch, the motorways, the Kazoos of the world, they're trying to change that market as well. And small business services, especially in sort of telco services as well, that's kind of still how they're sold, really. I went to see a friend of mine. I've probably told this story before, and he's a car dealer, and I took my dad passed away, and I took his car around there to get rid of it, basically. And he had all this sort of stuff and phones and some flashing lights. I was like, what the hell have you got here? I'm going to cut a very long story short. But he'd been missold loads of stuff that just didn't do what he needed it to. It was taking him 20 minutes to upload pictures to Flipping Auto Trader because someone sold him a 5 meg down, 1 meg up internet connection just to get the sale because it was cheap. They've been sold loads of radio phones when their car lot was the size of a standard single detached house plot. You could throw a stone over it quite easily. He had 4 radio phones, should be using his mobile. So he sold about 2.5 grand's worth of kit he didn't need. And he had a load of infrastructure on the wall flashing away that he didn't need. And the stuff he did have didn't do what he needed it to. That is small business services, and that needs to change. And that's what we want to do. So we were going to go through and re-engineer some of these services and improve upon them so that small businesses get services which are better, cheaper, simpler, in some cases faster. So that was the original insight. It's kind of like what we're doing in the used car industry and the banking industry. We want to do it in small business services. So the why is to make small business owners more successful. Simple as that. I see it as help them grow revenue, reduce costs, and in the middle, more profit, more income, more dividends, more time to walk the dog. That's why. Right, what else have we got? Good question, George. Thank you for that. That needs a bit of work, that pitch. Let me know. Ooh, Paul Keating, your first employee. Now, Paul, you're in luck. So if you go and enter Pitch to Peers, so go to moblocks.com, enter the competition. What it doesn't really say on the website, which I should add, is that when you enter, you'll get an email with a coupon code, which gives you free access to my course. And my course is called Startup with Peers Learning, but really it's not just about startups. It's for anyone with a startup, yes, a new business, yes, but anyone in business, unless you really know everything about everything, there'll be something in there that's useful. Now, there's a section in there on people, managing employees, hiring, and there's one of the modules, I think, or one lesson. These are all video lessons, me talking to you like this, as if you were having a coffee. And there's one about 20 tips for employers. And it goes through literally what you need to know, what you need to think about, and what you need to think about when you are your first hiring employees. The key, though, is to understand all the regulation that comes with it. So your pensions, your PAYE, registering of HMRC, it's making sure you tick all the boxes. You've got all your policies in place, that you onboard people properly, that you have ways of personal development plans. No matter what your business is, people need to know what success looks like. So, there's a lot of work. Hiring people is fun. It's employing people is what small businesses do. It's about, I guess, 50% of 60% private sector employment is SMEs. So very important what you're doing, but know what you're doing, because sometimes with employees, you can kiss a few frogs before you find your prince or princess. So beware of that. And if things go wrong and you haven't really done things properly, you can find yourself on the wrong end of an industrial tribunal pretty quickly. So go on my course. I'll give you a fantastic starting place in terms of understanding what you need to know, what you need to think about before you start hiring people, what you do. But most of it is, part of it's process. Part of it is steeping people in your business, in your culture, no matter how big your business or how small it is. but a lot of it actually is just making sure you tick all the legal and regulatory boxes so you don't get tripped up. I can't. We've had I don't know exact number today, but hundreds, and not up to thousands yet, but it's growing. So it's actually a huge amount. I mean, if we had 10,000, I'm not sure how the hell we get through them. We've got a pretty small team, but yeah, it's growing actually. So it's quite good to see the entries coming through. That's the pitch to peers competition. Gary Rushgrove, currently selling SaaS, which means software as a service, on an annual subscription basis. Well done for cash flow, being annual subscriptions rather than monthly. What are your thoughts on offering this monthly? Sorry. Would this improve retention? So the best way of finding out is by doing it and having different cohorts and just looking how your customers react. So in terms of, what is the lifetime value of a customer? Are you, because what tends to happen is, in reality, is that if you can retain customers, you can make more money, because usually when you are selling annual subscriptions, you're discounting it to some extent, or you're discount. Maybe you don't discount it because you don't have something to compare it to, but it's probably at a discount what you could actually earn in terms of revenue if it was a monthly subscription. Now, you might think that, and I don't know about churn either. So this is people that, that disappear after a year. Is your churn going to be higher if it's monthly or annually? I don't know. You don't know either. The only one way to find out is to try different pricing mechanisms, see what works. Try monthly, try annual with a discount. What's really interesting, though, I don't know where your business is that there's lots of new ways of funding now, like Pipe.com's a great one. I had lunch with the founder, Harry, a few months ago now, it must be. And these are very interesting companies, because what it means, and their insight was that software as a service companies are giving away too much revenue by offering annual discounts. So what they basically do, they're creating like a NASDAQ, a stock exchange of recurring revenue. So that you basically get to, phone's ringing. You basically get to sell your revenue to them on a customer account basis. They will then sell out your revenue, your recurring revenue, your monthly revenues X, your annual revenues 12 times X. They will give you, I don't know, it depends on your business, but 30% of that revenue up front. And it's a bit like factoring in a way, but it's not debt. And then your customers essentially pay them back, and there's a margin. It's like 5%, 6%, whatever it might be. And actually, that's a really efficient way, especially if your business is growing, because if you think about it, as your business grows, you kind of set up this account. You can then have that revenue up front, reinvest it in marketing. It grows again. Then you've got more firepower, more capacity. You can then take that money off the table and reinvest it again in marketing and keep going as long as you're growing. So having a subscription-based business is I think it should be the plan for most people in some ways. Even if you've got a shop, try and find a way of getting people to come back and spend a bit of money, make it a reoccurring rather than a recurring revenue business. But I think the only way to try, Gary, is to try it, is to find out what is the optimal pricing model for your business. Is your customer value, your lifetime value, whatever you want to call it, is that more if you're charging them monthly or annually? And can you charge more if you're billing them monthly, which you probably can normally? So let's give it a go and find out, and talk to your customers as well. So my Instagram and my phone keeps going off and just sorting out. All right, where are we? Just flicking through. Yeah, Paul. Hopefully we're back on the van tour. I don't know, probably January we're hoping, but again, who knows with what's going on? We shall see. But we want to kind of maybe do another sort of a finish off the tour. We're going to do the south. It's like going to be, I think it was Bristol, Birmingham, Bristol, Cardiff, Exeter, Bournemouth, or something like that. So we'll try and finish that off in January if it's possible. All right. on Instagram here. So we've got Aman. Hello, Aman. On Instagram, I don't know if you can actually hear me. I put a speaker in, so I'm just tapping it. Let me know if it actually works. Oh, it's still working. It still says I'm live. No questions on Instagram, really. So please, I'll do a few waves. Right. So Gary, I hope that was useful. Boom. Any more questions? Let's have a look. Oh, the other point I should say, I said this last week about retention, is if you've got a recurring revenue business, is retention is as important as acquisition. It might sound patently obvious to some of you, but winning customers, recurring revenue customers, is only half the battle. And there's a stat we use in software in Moblox we've integrated called Segment that lets you analyze what's going on your platform to sort of granular detail. And they issued a white paper which I was reading, it was quite interesting. It's about managing retention really. And the statistic was that if your business has 5% churn, which can be quite normal for many software as a service companies, if you reduce that to 2.5%, I can't remember whether it was monthly or a year, probably monthly. Yeah. Anyway, so if you reduce your churn, i.e. customers you lose every month from 5% to 2.5%, your business will be twice as big in 5 years. So that's the difference plugging the holes in your leaky bucket makes when you're trying to grow a recurring revenue business. Hi, Chris. I'm part of a KIC, a community interest company. Community interest company. That means, if you don't know what that means, to help develop Welsh coastal businesses. Fantastic. I'm involved in a Welsh business, Atherton Bikes. Not quite coastal, but it's not too far away. It's in Machynlleth. Probably said that incorrectly as well, so do forgive me. Bringing them online and creating the right type of digital footprint, and have built a platform where we truly support local business at the granular level, promoting them to a global audience. Could we, I think what you're saying here, it's gone off there. Could we promote your course? Yeah, absolutely. So get in touch. Obviously, one way to get access to the course is to enter Pitch for Peers, because then they'll get access to it as well. So, Chris, ping me on you're on LinkedIn there. Ping me on LinkedIn perhaps, and let me know what you're thinking. So the course usually is 200 quid. It was more than that in the past. So there's real value in it, and it is 76 lessons. It nearly killed me making it. It's ridiculous. 76 lessons and 10.5 hours of content of me, literally, if you could bear it, sitting here talking to you like this, as if, and so there's a huge amount of value in it, actually. Sometimes I go and watch them. People sort of say, "Oh, I've done this lesson. It was quite interesting, this point," and I go and watch it. And when I watch it, I think, "Wow, actually, I spent all the time and made that, and it's actually pretty good." So please do sign up and get access to my course. One here. Rob Walden. What happens if a company doesn't give a return on investment? What are the consequences? Or is that just an educated gamble you take? Many companies don't. Well, depends what you call a return on investment. So, you know, some people expect certain returns. If you're investing you're an angel investor or seed investor in a tech company, you're expecting a quite large multiple in terms of your return. You're also expecting quite a few of them not to make it. So, your return on investment depends on a couple of things. One is the risk you're taking, because risk and return they tend to go together, and also the cost of your capital as well. So obviously, if your capital, just picking up numbers here, costs you 6% and you get 9% back, you make 3%. Is that enough? It might be, it might not be. Depends on what scale and what you do, and what that 6% costs you to get. Kind of keeps going actually. If you're investing in equities, then you are looking at, your average investor wants 3 to 10 times the return. If you're looking at tech, probably even more than that. We're expecting some companies not to make it. So in a typical portfolio, in venture. And actually, my Dragon's Den portfolio, I have to say, was a microcosm of a venture capital fund. Is that so I did about 9 deals, I think. 6 actually went through because sometimes people change their minds, or what they told in the den wasn't quite reality. One of them, I'll probably lose my money. One of them was a flyer, so it was sold for tens of millions, and the rest of them, I got my money back. So I actually did quite well. I actually got the money back. That's not always the case. So, and a VC fund normally they'll have 1 or 2 absolute flyers that return the fund. They'll have several that do okay, and a large number that just don't make it. But overall, the fund makes money because across that portfolio, they found 1 or 2 that absolutely, what they call return the fund, absolute flyers. So if a company doesn't make a return on investment, and the founders did all they could do, then that's just the name of the game. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not failure. It's just a hypothesis didn't play out. I've been in situations myself where I've lost money for friends, investors, and it's soul destroying. Absolutely is. Cry yourself to sleep, even a grown man. But that is just the risk people take. So if you've got people that are saying, I want to invest in your company, and I want all this upside, but I want a fixed return or something, then they're the wrong people. You've got to find the right people willing to take the right risk to generate the right return. And if you can't connect those dots, then they're the wrong people, or they shouldn't be investing in your business. So the consequences are, if it's if your return is something which is contractual and it's like a debt instrument, so you are supposed to pay interest on a debt instrument, that is a return. And if you can't do that, then there may well be consequences in that they enforce security and take your business off you. Or in the case I've experienced, they can force security and sell it in a fire sale and put it through an administration process so that a lot of the sort of debt's cleared up and the buyer gets something which is a bit cleaner. So that can be a consequence. In equity, the consequence is that you and your investors lose their money. There's no recourse to you typically. In debt, we talked earlier about personal guarantees. That could be recourse to your personal assets. But in equity, the risk is we are investing together for this, hopefully, this stellar return. But with that risk, with that potential return, comes a risk. So they're the consequences. And there are a million ways in which you can contractually tie yourselves up contractually in a myriad of ways, which are very complicated, that blend debt and equity and different kinds of instruments where there can be consequences for you personally. So again, go into any deal like that with your eyes wide open. And my advice is always, having been one, to get a good lawyer. Well, we've got 5 minutes left, I think. I hope that was useful, Chris. I never quite know these Q&As that, whether my answers actually are adding value. So I kind of say what I know. I don't have all the answers. I've got some experience. I've got views. My strength is, I think, is that I've sat on every side of the table: entrepreneur, investor, institutional fund manager, private investor, non-executive director. I was on the board of British Business Bank when we put 80 billion to work during COVID. So I've sat on every side of the table. So I've seen lots of experience quite a lot and how it plays out. Because quite often, part of the challenge is whether you're negotiating with a supplier or a customer, or you're trying to raise finance, is understanding and being able to put yourself in their shoes. Because if you can't quite understand where they're coming from and why they're asking for what they're asking for. So it's quite helpful, for example, if you are looking at raising venture capital finances, understand the venture capital industry, understand how a venture capital fund is structured, understand what a GP is, what an LP is, what a hurdle rate is. So if you don't understand that stuff, you're going to struggle a little bit in terms of where they're coming from. If it's an EAS fund, you need to understand EAS. So that's my strength, I think, is being able to sort of bring that all together so I can share it with you. But I don't have all the answers for sure. Ollie, great that you've entered the competition. Hopefully you'll get the course. I don't know if it's a training. It is a training course. Any feedback on the course, let me know. Well, it's quite hard to change now, but hopefully it does add some value. Right, any more questions, or we're going to call it a day? Let's have a look. Any here on? Oh, here we go. Little Jamaica. Yeah, Little Jamaica. I mean, the talk now for us in businesses, will there be another lockdown? If we, how you survive, making contingency plans, and yeah, and just in case, as we think everyone should do. That's exactly what I was saying. Is that I think you've just got to plan for the worst, I think. And you might miss some revenue, you might miss some opportunities because you weren't out there, going at it all guns blazing, or you weren't trading at the sort of optimal level that you probably could do. But what's the downside? The downside is that okay, your margins weren't as great, or you lost a bit of profit. The other side of the coin is that you did get all guns blazing. Did move all those chips onto bed, as I was saying earlier. This slipping whatever it is, or the next one. I don't know what the next lesson in Greek alphabet is, so I'm not going to pretend that I do. The next one comes along, and that's got some funky um, feature that ruins ruins the economy and ruins our ability to interact with each other or walk into a shop, whatever it might be. We just don't know, and so know, I think that if you want to manage risk, is keep some powder dry and just play it along very cautiously. And I said this last week as well. You might see light at the end of the tunnel, but I think we're all going to find it's a lot further away than we think it is. Right. What else have we got? Any more? Got one more. Scrolling through. Yeah, I think anyone watching this, anyone that's found the time to tune in, which I do appreciate, if you do enter competition just to get on my course, I think there'll be something in there of value to you. So please do go and do that. I think we're gonna leave it there. So again, go through the captions again. Please enter the competition, win 10K, small business, no strings attached, moblocks.com. Please follow Moblocks on Instagram if you're not doing already, and LinkedIn. We're going to build up a following there. More and more of my content's going to be moved over to those channels now, rather than the sort of my own channels, because we're going to start to industrialize this. We're actually looking at developing almost like a weekly show as well, like a sort of TV show kind of thing. So that should be interesting as well. And the idea is to be very much engaged with the community, with you, with the people that are following Moblocks, people that are contributing, which you're all doing. So I really do appreciate that. So have a good evening. I'm actually doing a keynote tonight for the Tech Industry Association, or one of them, which is terrifying because they know more about it than I do. So I got my tuxedo. I'll be donning that in about a few hours, and they're going over to a hotel and talking about technology as well. And I think what I'm going to talk about is collaboration between large companies and small companies. Very hard to do, but if you get it right, you can create a huge amount of value. So thank you for now. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. I'll be issuing my newsletter tomorrow as well. So if you signed up for that, you'll get that too. I'll see you then.